Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for being here. I'll now call at this point, biannual board meeting of the Board of Directors for Corporation for Public Benefit to administer the Nevada Youth Legislature. We refer to it as the NYL Board. I will now call this meeting to order. And Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Chair Wiener. This afternoon, I will be serving as your Madam Secretary.
Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll? Thank you.
Absolutely. Senator Harris.
Present.
Assemblywoman Torres, absent. Victoria Carrion.
Present.
Zana Kudalim.
Present.
Vice Chair Woodhouse.
Present.
And Chair Wiener.
Present. Looks like we have a quorum, so we can begin our business. And I want to thank everybody on the board, all of the support that we already have been enjoying from our LCB experts and also the youth legislators who will be participating today. It's very exciting to invite them to share their experience with the board. I'm eager for all of us to experience in a recap what the NYL did yesterday in the finalization of their language for their bill, and I will let them, both Chair Gil Mescal and Youth Legislator Melendez, walk you through that as we get near to that on the agenda. Also, I look forward to updating you on what remains in the current term of the Youth Legislature, the exciting things that are yet to be experienced. Also, to let the board know that as of today, former Assembly member Connie Monk had submitted her resignation from the board, and I want to personally thank her for the profound level of dedication and passion that she devoted to the work of the NYL board, as well as the work she did in the Nevada Assembly. So at this time, I would like to open up the meeting for public comment.
Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we'll move on to agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes for the meeting of our June 24th, 2020 meeting. I would accept a motion for approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I will move approval of those minutes.
Okay, that Vice Chair Woodhouse. Do we have a second?
I will second, Madam Chair.
Second from Senator Harris. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Raise our hands. I think we can all see each other, but say it and raise your hands. Okay.
Yes.
Aye. Looks like unanimous support among the five members present. And so moving on to agenda item number 4, you should have the chair report that I submitted, and how the format of this is that I wrote one report and then it has references to the different agenda items. So you can keep going back and forth to this report. In terms of scholarships, we do have one policy decision to make today, and so we postponed or delayed the uploading until we make this decision. Going forward, it looks like as hopefully that we have the $1,000 scholarship that I offer, a combined $1,000 NYL scholarship, $500 Senator Joyce Woodhouse NYL scholarship, and this is the one that I would like to discuss with you. It's lovely to have one of our alumni offer to provide a scholarship. In the past, it's been former youth legislator Tiara Patmavanu, and at least this coming year, it is former youth legislator Jonathan Oglesby, and what he had requested is to have his wife also included in the name of the scholarship. So the way I presented it here, it's the $500 John and, in parentheses, and Tara Oglesby, and then it's the alumni scholarship. Just to give you background, you'll see there as an explanation, historically, we have always had someone presenting the scholarship who has some direct connection to the program. Tori Carrion, who's one of our board members, has consistently been very generous in offering the NYL scholarship, and we have not had any name on a scholarship that is not directly affiliated with the program. So I just like some input from the board members by you're sorry about the noise in the background. That's Liberty wanting her liberty. What your feelings are about opening it up and adding names from people who are not directly, and that would be Tara, her husband, but not Tara herself. So what would be the thoughts of the board?
Well, Madam Chair, I guess maybe it depends on the price of the contribution. Maybe those who are offering something significant, we will allow them to name as they please. But we could always keep a general rule that that's something we don't do.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Anybody else?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Joyce Woodhouse. I second what Senator Harris has said. I certainly understand why Mr. Oglesby would like to do this, and I respect that. So I really don't have a problem with this one since he is an alumnus, and there's the family connection of her being his wife. But I think we can handle these things on a case-by-case basis because these scholarships are really important. We'd love to expand them. And so I really don't want to close doors to someone who has a strong connection philosophically, for example, to the youth legislature, but maybe has not gone through it or been a direct participant, but we would welcome their scholarships for students.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may. Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Senators Harris and Woodhouse on this. My initial reaction was thinking about a comparable system in, say, college scholarships where if there's an alum of a college that wants to fund a scholarship program and they ask to have their spouse or significant other as part of, say, the naming of that scholarship, usually a college might agree to that as part of the terms of the scholarship. Granted, we're not a college here. This is a program for young people in our state, and we can set whatever precedent I think the board decides to for this. So I agree with the senators in that I think the example and the precedent we could set here is that we would take it on a case-by-case basis. And the understanding with former youth legislator Oglesby is that he is an alum of this program. This was a request that he made in support of his donation to endow a scholarship in this. And I think in this case that would be appropriate. But of course, in the future, we can take it on a case-by-case basis.
Anyone else? And so I would like to take a vote on this so we do have it of record. Boy, I'd love to just keep it on the screenshot here. All those in favor, and again, so the way I framed it, you'll see, and I put Antara, so that it's that there's something different about that relationship. I mean, I know it's subtle, but it's sort of an add-on to his scholarship there. And his sentiment was, because he had sought me out about it, that this was something both he and his wife had decided that they wanted to do, that they wanted to give back, and this is how they wanted to do it. So he felt because it was their family funding that her name should be on it as well. So I would entertain a motion then that we would, if I'm voicing this correctly, that we would accept this naming of this scholarship in the way presented and going forward because of the family connection. And going forward, we would consider the naming on an individualized basis as these requests for named scholarships present themselves to the board. Is that correct? Would that work for everybody? So I'd accept a motion to approve the motion, the language that I've just proposed.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Who was that?
Senator Harris.
Sorry,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you. I am way old on a very small screen. We have a motion from Senator Harris. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Second from Senator Woodhouse. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
It looks like unanimous support among members present. Thank you all very much. Moving on then to, oh, and that will be uploaded now that we've approved that. We will upload the scholarship information and let the current youth legislators as well as the alumni aware. We'll put a notice out shortly thereafter. But our plan is prior to or as of February 1st, this information will go up and we will then notify. On number 5, update of our meetings and trainings. If you'll look at my report, what is amazing since we went virtual is with the COVID pandemic, and I had reported this at our June meeting when we did our optional Zoom conversation. At that time, we had 19 youth legislators, and all of them participated for 2 hours in that optional Zoom conversation. What is a thrill for me to report is we had 100% attendance at this point. Now starting this school year, we have since had 18 youth legislators. We have been unable to fill those vacancies during the challenges that we're dealing with, but 18 youth legislators in this current school year, and we had 100% participation in the September 2nd meeting, which dealt with course election, and they learned about BDR development. That was their midterm training on bill drafting. The October 13th, which was the review, and they narrowed it down from their 18 to 7 to 2 BDRs, which brought it down to the final 2, and 100% participation in the November 19th meeting where they determined their BDR, the one BDR. Also, for the first time, as I recall, in the nearly 13-year history of the program, this is the first time that we have 100% participation in submitting a BDR for consideration. What I did not put on here, because at the time I wrote this, it hadn't happened yet, and that was the NYL meeting yesterday, during which youth legislators did finalize with the extraordinary assistance of Asher Killian, our counsel. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Asher, for your amazing contributions. They did approve the final language. You will see it should be in your packet, the BDR as submitted, as drafted by legal, and it is BDR, old eyes here, BDR 14-549, and that the BDR language as drafted by legal, to be discussed yesterday, should be in your packet. This is what the youth legislators worked with yesterday. They processed extraordinarily seriously and with great insight and curiosity, and in the final voting, because there was a lot of shifting and changing and discussions that continued to show up. The bill as approved, the BDR as approved by the youth legislators, has 3 additional components, 3 amendments that Asher and team will integrate into the final language that will go to the legislature. So it was an extraordinarily thoughtful procedure yesterday with youth legislators. And it is a joy that we will have our chair as Hela Mescal and also youth legislator Melendez present. They're on the agenda in just a moment because this was the request. If you'll recall at our June meeting, our board wanted to learn about the bill and learn about it from those who are most fully engaged with it, and that's our chair and the primary sponsor of the measure, and they are here to present that to you in just a moment. I'm going back and forth, bear with me. So going forward, we have one more required activity, and that is, well, they also, by the way, in the report, did testimony before a public decision-making body. And what was amazing about this, we adapted how they could do it, obviously, with pandemic, and provided suggestions and recommendations or opportunities, ideas about a written testimony. So giving them the alternative. In the past, it was encouraged, we said, testifying in person before a public body. And so at this point, it would be a virtual presence. Could be email, it could be Zoom, it could be telephone, and or any of those written. And so we provided tips about submitting written testimony and a little bit of a template for that. And it was amazing. You'll see just the diversity of bodies that the youth legislators testified before, whether it be the Economic Forum or school district or the Library and Museum Board or legislative committees. They became very, very innovative in how they approached the challenges of the times and the intention of the assignment. It was extraordinary. And what was really lovely in getting the reports of the experience, because for every activity they submitted a report to us, how enriched their, Patriot wants to be part of the call, how enriched their own enlightenment was, the expanded awareness that they got to expose themselves to, and how important their engagement was in the conversation. And historically, this particular assignment, though sometimes it's, I won't say underplayed, but we spend so much about the bill and other things. Historically, this is one assignment that we have most of the revelations around. It's where the big wow now moments often show up because it's an individual experience and they've grown into it and they get to shine. And it was extraordinarily well demonstrated even during pandemic how big this was. Going forward, we so the last the activity, the next required activity we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's an outreach letter and we'll talk about that a little bit later. They don't have any more other than that letter coming up April 22nd is not required, it's optional, a Zoom conversation. We have this at the end, a conversation of some sort at the end of every year. In the past, it was a telephone call and we might get 4 or 5 or 6. Again, as I mentioned in May, we had a conversation. We had 100% attendance for 2 hours. So I'm hoping we'll have the same. And what we garner from these conversations, it's not just kumbaya and yeah, it really felt great. We have specific questions that we field from them so that we can grow the program through their input based on their experiences. We continue to listen very carefully, and I can assure you that some of the biggest leaps of improvement in the program have been the result of this feedback during these end of year calls. We pay extraordinary attention to how they share their message with both their heads and their hearts, what it means to them and how it shows up. So I'm hoping, as last year, that we will have an extraordinary attendance at that. And then the annual report to the governor, which is, again, annual every year. The chair will prepare this and submit. We work with the chair. We provide examples through the similar report of a similar year. So we will send the chair at least the report from 2 years ago, if not that one and the one 2 years before that, so that she has an opportunity to see what content. And then we'll work with the chair to make sure that she's comfortable with it, and also ensure that it is distributed according to the way the law requires. I think that's it for that agenda item. So now what I'd like to do, and that's just a report, we don't need to vote on that. Are there any questions? I know I get yakky, very excited about what we've been doing and what they've been doing, because they've shown up 110%. So any questions from the board about any things that show up under this agenda item? Okay, then we will move on to, very exciting, listening to our youth legislators. Under agenda item number 5, number 6, excuse me, we have our chair, Chair Haley Mescal, And also under 7, we will have Chair Hilmeskel and Youth Legislator Melendez work together on it. But under agenda item number 6, Chair Hilmeskel, will you please present the selection process that the NYL experienced to get to the point of yesterday? So I'll turn it over to the NYL Chair Hilmeskel.
Good afternoon, members of the Nevada Youth Legislature Board. For the record, my name is Melite Hilmeskel. I represent Senate District 9. I currently serve as the chair of the Nevada Youth Legislature. With me today is Youth Legislator Juliana Melendez, representing Senate District 10. She first proposed the juvenile justice measure, which we selected as our bill to be introduced during the 81st session of the Nevada Legislature. I'm appearing before you primarily to share some background information about how the NYL selected this measure, as it is statutorily provided bill. Youth Legislator Melendez will walk you through the details of the bill. Again, before Youth Legislator Melendez explains the NYL bill, our intention with this measure, and the benefits that it will deliver, I would like to describe how we, as the Nevada Youth Legislature, chose this BDR for introduction. On September 2nd, 2020, all 18 youth legislators participated in a comprehensive midterm training on BDR development. We learned about drafting language, fiscal impacts, and advocacy, as well as much more. Prior to the next meeting, all 18 youth legislators submitted their individual ideas for the NYL's one statutorily provided bill. During the October 13th meeting, each youth legislator provided his or her proposal and answered questions posed by their NYL colleagues. During that meeting, we started with the 18 measures, then we narrowed it down to 7. After the 7, we chose the top 2 for further consideration at our November meeting. Then from the top 2 BDRs, we took them into further consideration. Of those top 2 BDRs, one was addressed requiring mental health screenings each year for school-aged children, and the other one focused on racial equity in meetings. Racial equity in the juvenile justice system. By the time we came together for our November 19th meeting, youth legislators were eager to learn more about those 2 remaining BDR for the legislative hearings, with 5 expert witnesses for each measure. After much comprehensive testimonies and careful question and answers with the witnesses, the NYL selected the juvenile justice BDR proposed by Youth Legislator Melendez. It is now my privilege to again introduce Youth Legislator Juliana Melendez to help you better understand the need for this legislative measure and why we are so eager to present and advocate for this bill during the upcoming legislative session. Following Youth Legislator Melendez's presentation, each of us looks forward to answering any questions that the members of the NYL board might have. Thank you, Youth Legislator Melendez.
Hello, is my mic working?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. One moment. So good afternoon, members of the NYL board, and thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for allowing me to share some more information about BDR 14549. Just to start off, my name is Youth Legislator Juliana Melendez, and I represent Senate District 10. We are all here because we care about our Nevadan youth. Whether we have children, grandkids, younger friends, or our youth ourselves, we have a personal responsibility to protect them. In order to fully carry out this duty of protection, we cannot ignore the fact that minority youth are amongst the most vulnerable within our communities, and this vulnerability leaves them open to discrimination based solely upon their race. This issue is extremely prevalent within our juvenile justice system. Nevada has the 6th highest rate of student arrests in the nation, and within the last 3 years, Black youth accounted for 43% of police referrals, while only making up 17% of the student body. In Clark County specifically, Black and brown youth make up 76% of all juvenile cases referred to the district attorney's office. The two major components of BDR 14549 that seek to address these alarming statistics are the mandatory racial and cultural competency trainings that would be required for all workers in the juvenile justice system, as well as the requirement for an affidavit to be signed by anyone who files a court petition against a juvenile, certifying that the petition was not filed due to any type of discrimination. At yesterday's meeting, the three amendments added to the bill were the addition of permissive language allowing the Attorney General to consult with others within their office when creating regulations for the training, the addition of religious minorities under Section 1, subsection 2B, and we added language specifying the timing of the implicit bias and cultural competency trainings, just to the general effect of having them occur every 2 years, unless otherwise decided by the Attorney General. On the topic of funding, a concept comparable to what we are attempting to achieve through I'm so sorry, my cat is sneezing. On the topic of funding, a concept comparable to BDR 14549 is restorative justice. So during the last legislative session, community organizations advocated and provided the framework for restorative justice, and it's assisted in the implementation of it. By having the community organizations provide this framework and them working one-on-one with school social workers, the restorative justice trainings became characteristically pro bono. Some specific community organizations that would help with funding and or provide free trainings needed for this bill's successful implementation are the NAACP and the ACLU. Also, the state of Nevada spends 2.7 times as much per prisoner as per public school student, and with less students in the juvenile justice system, we can allocate these funds towards community needs, such as directing attention towards mental health in schools or providing funding for our school staff. In today's current political climate, it is urgent more so now than ever to address the inequalities faced by minority youth within the Nevadan juvenile justice system. I personally have friends who have been targeted by school police and treated differently compared to their white counterparts, specifically because of the color of their skin. At one of our last NYL meetings, a witness shared her encounter with a Las Vegas Metro Police Department officer who accused her of a crime simply because she was Black. We cannot allow instances like these to keep occurring in Nevada. By supporting BDR 14549, we are able to prevent thousands of our youth from ending up in a system that leaves them psychologically, physically, and mentally traumatized. While I understand that school districts and police departments have the best interests of students in mind, the recent deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Rayshard Brooks clearly illustrate the potential dangers of police interactions, and this is why we need to be the first to address this undercover pandemic of racial disparities in our juvenile justice system. Let us not wait for 10 years to pass so that we can try and help those whose incarceration we should have prevented. Let's take action for our youth today, not tomorrow. Once again, thank you for the NYL board for this opportunity. I welcome any and all questions you may have for me and or for Chair Haley Minskell.
Thank you very much to both our chair and our youth legislator, primary sponsor of this BDR. I'm still in awe of the level of passion and purpose and integrity and authenticity and all those big quality words that the NYL has invested in this BDR, and single out particularly the youth legislator Melendez, whose dream it was to see this bill make it to this place. I will now open it up to questions from board members. This is your time to have an exchange and ask any questions. This will help our youth legislators develop their capacity to deliver and present this bill to the legislature. Zanaku Lim, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, I want to give thanks and appreciation to Chair Haley Mescal and Youth Legislator Melendez on the work that they've been putting into this alongside their colleagues on the Youth Legislature, and in particular working on this through the pandemic and physical distancing. So kudos to both of you and to all of your colleagues on the Youth Legislature for your leadership during this time. And I also appreciate Youth Legislator Melendez, your mention and nod to, I think, some very long overdue reckoning with issues around racial and socioeconomic justice, both in our own community, but also nationwide. So one question I do have, and maybe it's come up in some of your meetings or you've had some discussions with others around this. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Around the issue of trainings, cultural competency trainings, looking at education or other fields where there are trainings or workshops provided on this work. There are those who will critique the effectiveness of these trainings, and they can come from different directions, right? There are some who might say that, oh, this is an attempt to impose, like one certain way of thinking about an issue. And then there are others who might say that these trainings or workshops will not go far enough in addressing root causes around racism or other forms of prejudice. So I was curious, Legislator Melendez, from your perspective and maybe some of the discussions that your colleagues have had on the Youth Legislature, how do you see the Youth Legislature's bill draft requests now kind of fitting into the broader landscape of other efforts to address racism and bigotry in policy?
Thank you so much for your question. So first off, to address the issue of whether or not these trainings would be effective, whether or not they fit within current policy that's being made, at one of our meetings where we had witnesses come up, we had a prosecutor, her name was Ms. Duffy, and she is living proof that the trainings do work. She gave a very moving testimony. She worked with the Las Vegas case here, where there was an Instagram account made of Black students at Arborview High School that were being targeted, and she, as a prosecutor, went through an implicit bias / cultural competency training, and she felt that without that training, she would not have been able to deal with that case as effectively as she did. She made her whole team go through the training, and we also had a witness from the DJJS, and they say that they already have trainings in place as well that they feel meet federal standards and they meet the needs of the community, and they would also like for these trainings to be implemented in other parts of the juvenile justice system, for example, with the Las Vegas NPD. So I do believe that these trainings are effective. They do something. I'm sure there's always going to be critique, but just from my perspective, from the witnesses that I was able to speak to and listen to, the trainings will have positive effect and will be able to address these issues. And as long as we're taking baby steps in the right direction, I feel it's most. So I hope that answers your question. If not, please let me know and I'll go further into detail.
Madam Chair, if I may just briefly follow up. Thank you, Legislator Melendez, for that. I ask because both in conversations I've had with colleagues who work in education and also other folks I've spoken with in recent months, I've heard from folks who have different opinions around trainings or workshops and whether or not they're quote unquote effective in addressing implicit bias or other prejudices. But I think you definitely highlighted an important point, right? Like there might not be any one individual end all be all to address some of these deeply rooted issues and deeply seated problems that are continuing to affect communities from marginalized backgrounds. However, I think the credit to you and your colleagues on the Youth Legislature is really thinking about, where is an area within the broader scope of this problem, but where is what's a slice of that that you and your peers have identified that you want to work on. And if you can make one positive impact and change, even in that one slice, you can, in the long run, have a broader positive impact on the larger system. So kudos to you and your peers for continuing this work and really thinking that through. Thank you.
What I'd like to do, because this showed up a little bit later in the discussion yesterday, and it's a very important piece of it. Youth Legislator Melendez, if you would explain the potency and power and accountability that is integral to the affidavit. This would possibly add more understanding to the intention of the bill.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So the second major highlight of the bill is the fact that anybody who files a petition with the court against a juvenile would have to sign an affidavit. And within the affidavit, it says that this individual has undergone a cultural competency / implicit bias training, and that they are not filing the petition due to any underlying biases or out of any form of discrimination defined within the definition of cultural competency within the bill. And what was discussed yesterday was how would this hold these individuals filing these petitions accountable. So what happens is, because it is a court document, it will be in the court records. If it is later brought up or a defense attorney tries to make the argument that the individual that signed the affidavit lied, that maybe they did not go to training or that they did file it out of discrimination, they would therefore be held accountable. So how that accountability takes form is, I believe, ultimately up to the discretion of the court. But because it is a legal document that they sign themselves, because they are supposed to have candor towards the court and towards whatever documents they sign, that there would be accountability taken. And that was a safety measure we put in place just to ensure that the bill isn't being made for, I would say, like willy-nilly reasons, that it is actually implemented and that there is action taking place if the requirements of the bill are not met. So, Madam Chair, I hope that answered the affidavit question.
Yes, thank you. Any additional questions from the NYL board? Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, please, go ahead.
I
Vice
just
Chair.
wanted to say that this has been an incredible discussion on this bill. And I have to be very honest that it's the presentation of these two young women this afternoon is probably better than most presentations done by adults in front of the legislature when they're pursuing their pieces of legislation. So to both of you, I just want to say I am so impressed and I am so proud of you both. And I just want to wish you good luck on and best wishes on this bill as it moves forward through the legislature. You've done an incredible job, and it, as Zana Kudo-Lim said earlier, you know, kudos to you and your colleagues on the Nevada Youth Legislature for pursuing this bill. It certainly is something that's desperately needed. And once again, our students lead the way. So thank you.
And thank you so much, Vice Chair Woodhouse. And I'd like to add, because I was privileged to attend and participate at some level in yesterday's consideration of this BDR and the subsequent amendments, that as you state that the articulation at the highest level by the youth legislators, their scrutiny of the language and the positioning of words and the intentions and all the things that go into a bill, the performance from start to finish on this measure was delivered at the highest level of consideration, and the unfoldment of these young people, as demonstrated today by the two representatives of the NYL, each of us on this board, as well as all of the appointing senators and members of the assembly who are part of this process too, this is just an exemplary demonstration. And I say thank you to the youth legislators and all of the ways they've been showing up. Like I say, 100%, 100%, 100%, which is historic for the entire program. We've not had this level of engagement in the entire history. And also, I want the kudos to this board for supporting the work of these young people who aren't letting a pandemic get in the way of presenting and offering to the legislature an extraordinary bill for consideration that reflects an issue that is resonating very clearly. I might also add, and I haven't gone back to look at the actual voting record. However, in recent 2-year terms of the youth legislature, this particular bill received a resounding vote of support. Historically, throughout the program, we've often had to take 2 or 3 votes between the top 2 bills to determine which one would be the bill going forward, because there was passion surrounding both, that with comparable passion for each. Both were significant proposals. This one resonated at a very, very high level, and the vote was very, very significantly supportive when it came down to the vote to select this as the bill. So again, a little more background on how we got to where we are. So are there any other comments or questions? Or
Madam Chair,
yes, Senator Harris.
from the sounds of it, it looks like this will be coming through judiciary.
Yes, yes.
As did NYL's last bill. And so I look forward to hearing that during session.
Thank you. Yes, we've already put in our requests, and I'm going to be addressing that in just a moment. And if there's no other questions or comments, I want to thank our chair and our primary sponsor for appearing before the NYL board today, articulating at the highest level with both head and heart. Thank you for bringing it all to us so we can experience the high level of engagement that you have been demonstrating as the NYL for 2 years, and demonstrating your leadership in this program. And we are very excited, if I may speak for the others, to look ahead to know that this level of engagement and interest will continue moving forward. And we're thrilled that this program has been a piece of that, to inspire you and to give you a platform to learn the skills and to take it forward. So thank you both for attending our meeting, for participating, and for presenting this invaluable information to us. So thank you very much. Okay.
Chair.
Yes, please, Mr. Okudalim.
Yes, if there's a little bit of time, I was curious if I could ask both the youth legislators for just some brief reflections on what is their experience just as youth legislators, representing young people in their Senate districts. What has that felt like over the past year, going through the challenges that the state has faced? For me, as an alum of the program, I think back, as you and Senator Woodhouse would recall, to when I served on the youth legislature during the previous Great Recession, and our state going through challenges with funding of education and other challenges through that time, and how difficult it was for many of my colleagues and I during that period, facing challenges and representing our peers. So I was curious to hear from the 2 representatives briefly, if there's some time, on what has the experience as youth legislators meant to them as we've navigated the pandemic, racial justice, and other issues over the past year.
Who'd like to go first?
I will go. I would first like to start off by thanking Madam Chair, as well as the members of the NYL board, for giving Youth Legislator Melendez and I the opportunity to present the VDR. And we are open to questions beyond the meeting about the VDR as well. And being the leader during this pandemic, it definitely did strike me by surprise. The pandemic was definitely unexpected, and I didn't expect it at all. However, to me, being a leader was just being there for my peers and letting my peers know that we're all going through it together, constantly checking up on them. There's not really like words of encouragement. You can give words of encouragement, but I didn't want to give anyone false hope, like when we're going to be going back to school, because none of us really know the answers to those questions. So to me, it was just being there for my peers and constantly checking up on them. But it was definitely a learning experience. Thank you.
Legislator Melendez.
Hi, yes. Thank you so much again for the opportunity to speak. Being a leader during this pandemic, at first, I will be honest, I was very discouraged. It was very much so thoughts along the lines of, what can I do? I mean, I hold these titles, but what can I really do to help my peers and my friends get through these tough times? And echoing what Youth Legislator Haley Miskell said was, I didn't want to give anybody false hope. So how I personally went about being a leader was taking action. So it was going to school board meetings, it was talking to my school administration, talking to my fellow peers about what they wanted to see happen within school, what changes they wanted to see, what support they needed, just really making sure that they felt listened to and that they felt like they had somebody they could go to. And I kind of just wanted to act as the sort of middleman between my peers and those above me in terms of position, because I know personally at my school it's kind of hard for my peers to speak to school admin sometimes. So I sort of took that responsibility upon myself. But this has definitely been a huge learning experience, being a leader during a pandemic. But I feel like it's definitely strengthened my skills, like communicating, learning how to effectively communicate with adults more so, just things along those lines. So this has been definitely a tough situation, but something that's allowed me to grow, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity.
And if I may just reflect
Please.
back, Madam Chair, real briefly here. When I think back to even my own time on the Youth Legislature and the lessons that my peers and I learned, leadership lessons, leadership experiences, it's difficult to imagine that you might have to apply those lessons, especially in a circumstance like what we've been going through with the pandemic. But at the same time, if there's ever a circumstance in which to apply those lessons, this is it. And I want to commend, as an alum of the program, both of you and your peers for the extraordinary leadership that all of you have had to demonstrate, especially throughout the challenges that the state and young people have faced through the pandemic and throughout the past year. So thank you both for your reflections. And I think I can speak for my colleagues here on this board in saying that we look forward to following not only the work that you'll be doing during session on behalf of the bill and other efforts you're following, but how this program will, how you'll be able to apply these lessons in your futures as alumni. So thank you both.
Anyone else? Thanks again to our youth legislators, and I look forward to working with you as we move into the NYL Day and presenting this measure to the committee and beyond. And so in that regard, I will move then on to agenda item number 8, which is giving you a tentative look at what I keep wanting to see everybody. They keep putting me on the screen. What it looks like, and this is tentative currently at this time, all those caveats to qualify. This is the working plan, and then the details will follow. And so NYL Day will be March 16th, 2021. That has been scheduled. I believe Tina's working on that as NYL Day at the legislature. There are a lot of variables that will be taken into account. And of course, we don't know what all that looks like right now. So this is our hope at this point that we would like to roll out. This is where we're the starting point. We would, because we will, hopefully we will be able to be scheduled in the Judiciary Committee in the Senate on that day for the hearing. It is our plan at this time, once the language has been crafted based on yesterday's votes and decisions of the NYL, Mr. Killian now is prepared to draft the language that would be introduced at the legislature. And it's our hope once we have that language, then we have something to present to the committee prior to session, hopefully, or shortly thereafter starting, because that's real soon, so we can get scheduled. And we're requesting that hearing be on March 16th so that we can integrate it into the entire NYL day. Because I believe Judiciary, we are told, will be that committee in the Senate meets in the afternoon, is what I understand. Again, we're flexible, but based on that understanding, we would start NYL day virtually attending whatever the technology to that looks like, whether Zoom links are sent out or how we notify youth legislators to participate. But they would participate through viewing the Senate floor session, and we would work with staff to prepare a floor statement for the majority leader, recognizing NYL Day and the youth legislators, give some perspective on the program and where we are now. And in recent, the last two terms, I believe, I think it's the last two, recently in the history of the program, we have given the graduating seniors a very special graduation cord they would wear at graduation, get permission to wear, but there are only so few in the state that would have this particular cord, and it's silver and blue, and it's a cord that they could wear, with the cap and gown. But I was thinking, since we can't give them to them, that maybe we could have a symbolic ceremonial presentation by the majority leader. And again, this is what we're hoping, hopefully it will roll out, that the majority leader would symbolically, ceremonially present the cord to all of the graduating seniors in the program. And then we will send the cords to our graduating youth legislators. Following that, we would do a lunch break, because that's a morning activity. And then we would hopefully, if we can be scheduled for Senate Judiciary, then we would work with the broadcast services, BPS, to ensure that youth legislator, our chair, Helen Mescal, and youth legislator Melendez can participate via Zoom or whatever the technology is to do similar presentation to what you heard today. And then it is the intention that youth legislators who choose to, again, this is optional, prepare and get to us written testimony in support of their bill. We've never done this before. Pandemic got the juices going. They've just done written testimony, and I prepared a 2-page handout to refine what that, quality things they might want to put in it, to submit written testimony in support of their bill, and so that we can submit this testimony from youth legislators, written testimony, to the committee in support of their bill. What makes this so amazing is that it is the perfect bringing it all together of each youth legislator who chooses to be totally involved with their bill up and through the presentation to the committee, and that their words can be part of the permanent record. So it just really pulls it all together. And again, this will be optional. We'll give them a due date, and we'll see who chooses to present testimony. If it's possible, I may do a drawing as to Senate districts or something to make it equitable, and maybe pull a sentence or two from several of the testimonies and verbally enter that into the record so it can actually be heard. Then after the hearing, we will do, however technology supports it, a debriefing and discussion. We're going to provide them with worksheets to fill out and kind of keep track and stay with the hearing, so that they're making observations and taking notes, so that they're fully engaged in the hearing as they watch it remotely. And then we'll have a debriefing and discussion, however we can pull them together virtually following that. And if there's some version of an in-person by then, you know, social distancing and all that at each, you know, here and in Carson City, we would love to complete this time, this condensed NYL day, and have our traditional carrot cake and share what the day's experience felt like and looked like and how they grew through it and so on. And again, this is tentative, but this is what NYL Day on March 16th looks like at this point. So any questions or thoughts or suggestions? Okay, and we'll keep you informed as we get closer. Again, a lot of it is fluid because of technology and what possibilities are there. This is a working draft. Okay, now we'll work on to recruitment and outreach, agenda item number 9. This is the last required activity of the youth legislature and it's due, oh shoot, I don't have the date on it. At the, I think maybe by the end of February. Oh, I didn't write it down. Tina, could you tell us what that date is? If you're with us. Anyway, I believe it's something like the 23rd or something.
I apologize. What date are you looking for?
That due date for the outreach recruitment letter.
It's January 23rd.
Yeah, okay. Good memory here for an old lady. And so what this letter, we've created a very functional worksheet, a template for them. And this is a outreach recruitment letter that they will send to at least 2 organizations that are outside of their traditional school environment. And they will provide us with the name and the title or role of the person and the organization to whom they are sending it, so we can see where the letters are going and maybe anticipate getting applications from them. We have found that often the youth legislators themselves are our best recruiters because they're living it and they're the endorsers and they are the best voice. We were asked yesterday if they have to have already circulated the letter by the 23rd to those at least 2 people outside. And I gave them some flexibility saying, no, but we do need to see the letter. We gave them, I mean, again, on the worksheet, the template kind of, we gave them things to include in the letter and they can do it in their own language, but certain things that will make it an appealing recruitment letter. And as close as we are to require that they send it out by that deadline, we'll hold their honor that they do that following submitting the letter to us. We need legislator assistance. So this is where we need your input and your intelligence. I'm sorry, my finger keeps showing up, but I lose you. We had talked about this before, engaging legislators to help with the outreach and the recruitment. I will be, one step I'm taking, I will be working with the Public Education Foundation, as On knows this well. Dr. Brian Miley and I have talked, and I will be reaching out to them to provide assistance to reach the alumni of the Teacher Leader Academy and also those who have participated in the Executive Leadership Academy. This will give us a wonderful reach of very involved, well, I'll say campus-based leaders, but school-based leadership to get the energy up. And so we'll do a letter to ask for their help because these applications are already up. They're already online. And so we will be reaching out to them, which is a great resource. And so we need your help, some suggestions as to how we can get the legislators excited about it, to reach out to young people or to reach out to people they know, because we historically might in person visit the student councils or the honor societies or conferences of different organizations. We don't have that capacity right now. So what would your all's thoughts be about other recruitment, creative recruitment opportunities for us to start reaching out since the applications are online already? And remember, the new term starts June 1st, and I don't remember on the application what the deadline is for submitting. Tina would provide that I skipped over. Tina, when are the applications due?
March 31st, 2021.
Okay, thank you. So we have some time, but we also need to work ahead, given that we don't have all of our access opportunities that we typically have. So any suggestions from board members as to what other avenues or how we can excite our legislators about helping with recruitment with everything else going on, or other organizations you believe we should reach out to?
Well, I think this is a really tough one in regular times. I don't know what schools are doing to keep students engaged. If there is any focus on extracurricular activities at all right now. So I guess that'd be my first question, is maybe how is Clark County or the Public Charter School Authority facilitating any type of extracurricular activities during COVID times? Maybe it's just a quash all around and we're just a victim of that, but maybe there are ways and avenues to keep students engaged.
Fortunately, here I am, the future predictor, because this takes effect in June. And I appreciate that input, Senator Harris, because we're looking at the current pool of people to reach with a message in order to get them to look ahead to a time when maybe we can gather in person again. However, we're working in an environment where how do we even get to them back in person environments? So Zon, you've worked at PEF. What do you think the possibility that's for Southern Nevada? Northern, I don't know what's comparable up there. That teachers in the Teacher Leader Academy, they can reach out to students they've worked with maybe, and the executive leadership program, that's the administrators at schools. What are your thoughts? Is that at least a great place to include as part of our outreach for recruitment of that roster of people who've already demonstrated high level engagement?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking as a former full-time staff member at the foundation now, but still in touch with alumni of the program, I think at an individual level, the alumni of those leadership academies will be folks who are generally quite well connected in the broader school community. For the Teacher Leader Academy, they're mainly Clark County School District or Southern Nevada charter based teachers. So from a teacher's angle, the Teacher Leader Academy will be in Southern Nevada. For the Executive Leadership Academy, there are alumni, many of whom are from Southern Nevada, but also from Washoe and rural counties as well, who are also well connected in their school or district communities. So from an educator to educator standpoint or an educator to student standpoint, they should be a good group who can share the word among students that they know or their students and their colleagues. Another example could be looking at I think there's a new director of student activities for Clark County School District now that Sandy Ginger retired. I think Kristen Grimm is now the director of student activities. And offline from the meeting, Madam Chair, I could chat with you and see what might be a good way to get in touch with at least CCSD's student activities department and getting the word out through that means. One other example would be maybe if you chat with Dr. Miley again at the foundation. To my knowledge, the Clark County School District has like a weekly email blast that goes out to administrators. I think we may have used that in the past, called a weekly wire. And if there might be a way to get in touch with whoever in CCSD compiles information for that, that might be helpful. In terms of Washoe and some of the other school districts, perhaps alumni of the Executive Leadership Academy who are leaders in those school districts might be possible contacts, at least to ask, you know, hey, in Washoe County School District, what's a way to get the word out? So those are just some ideas off the top of my head.
Madam Chair, I have a couple of ideas too. One, I don't know if we've ever gone through the Department of Education before, but that would give us an opportunity to look at all of the counties. And with the legislature going on, I know that Superintendent Ebert has at least weekly and sometimes daily Zoom calls and conference calls with the superintendents of all of the school districts and the charter school authority. So if you would like, I could reach out to her and provide some information and ask her if she would make that information available to those superintendents and encourage them to take a look, you know, to get the message on down to the principals and the other administrative staff in their high schools. The other one is the Nevada Association of School Administrators has become extremely active, and they are providing all kinds. It's at least monthly because I get all of their emails. So if you would like, I would reach out to their executive director as well, and maybe we could get him to put something on their website, their pages that they send out to, and it's a really broad group, that we could get more information out that way. And I'd be more than happy to do those two groups for you if you'd like. You're on mute.
These things just drive me nuts. Anyway, I can certainly work with you to craft, you know, whatever kind of message, because we want to keep it as simple as possible and still make it functional and meaningful. So that's awesome. And Zon, I will reach out to Dr. Miley about what you're talking about, the alert, the weekly email alert and so on. And I'll work with Dr. Miley at PEF about getting messaging out. So Senator Woodhouse, if we work with the Nevada Association of School Administrators, as well as with Joan Ebert, State Department of Education, will we have the opportunity then to reach all of the counties, not just Washoe and Clark, but statewide? Would that be a given that we'd be able to access statewide messaging?
Yes, definitely. Because she's working with all of the superintendents whenever she has her calls and her meetings. So yes.
Okay.
And the Nevada Association of School Administrators is a state organization. So all of their information goes to everywhere, all of the school districts within the state, as well as the charter schools. Wonderful. And I believe as well as the private schools. I think they're all involved.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Okay, great. Then what we'll do is come up with some messaging and then get on this ASAP. So Senator Woodhouse, I'll be visiting with you about, you know, what kind of messaging you think would work with those populations, and we will craft a very powerful message that can be used, because again, March 31, even if we start getting out now, then it's getting the message to them and then having them get the message out there and you know, keeping it moving. And I have to say, historically, it really often takes this kind of effort I mean, we've done in the past, we've worked with the school counselors, we've worked with social studies, we've done all of that specific to those organizations within the state structure. And we found that often things where we've had vacancies, and sometimes no matter what we do, we have some areas where vacancies, that often it's when we reach out to it was actually the Nevada Association of School Administrators, where they got on it and got on to principals and said, we need someone from this district and you're the one at the two high schools, get us a student, kind of thing. I mean, it's sometimes coming from the top, it's just they get something done in a way that we don't always do it bottom up, sometimes top down is the distinction of action and delayed action. So I'll work with you, Senator Woodhouse, if that's okay, and we will expedite this so we can get the message out. Okay. Is that,
That would be perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Regarding the application, which is up, there are some shifting. In this application, I added some language that we've had where the parents sign off and where the principals sign off, and there's now a kind of a paragraph for each one where their signature goes that explains that they support the student's application to the program, and that it could require a significant amount of commitment by the student, including missing several days or parts of several days for required trainings. And we want them to sign off on knowing how big a deal it is and what we're expecting. And if the principal reads that and signs, I know they're going to be missing school, sometimes that has been a challenge in the past where nobody knew that they were going to have to miss some school. Now, typically we go 2 to 5, so maybe they miss an hour or not an hour. But when we have a full day training, that's a different story. So we've just put some explanatory language in the application that they sign so that they are at least informed in advance about what a commitment to this program means to the student. And we have not done that before. We are removing references to the District Youth Advisory Council based on conversations with LCB, decision makers in the legislature, and some situations that we have experienced historically, and some, one or two more recently. The DIAC has become a little bit of a challenge for us because it is not an activity that we can have an adult supervising type there to oversee the activity or certainly lend assistance with. And so at the suggestion of LCB, because of limited oversight capacity, this is not going forward going to be part of our program. And looking back on the history, since I was excited when the youth legislature many years ago voted unanimously to have an advisory council role. What in reality has occurred ever since then, and getting more elaborate about what it looks like and what you can do, and coaching and training on it, this has consistently been very problematic for our youth legislators. I mean, consistently. There may be an exception here and there where one can get 2 members, and we've had one, I think we had 3, but typically they struggle to get 1. This is an overload for them. They have experienced a lot of resistance in their efforts to recruit and get volunteers to participate in the DIAC. And so so it has not been as productive as we had hoped. That doesn't mean that we can't find other ways to engage constituents in the program. But again, LCB wants us to have a more supervisory engagement in those activities. And also the youth legislators themselves have struggled with this piece of the program year after year. Also, because of wanting to maintain the integrity of the program and the individual components, LCB also recommends that town hall meetings be held on a campus, somewhere on campus or in the school environment, so that there can be an adult present for the town hall meeting. Again, a supervisory role. These are pieces of a legislative program, and it's important that we stay engaged as the legislature in whatever role we have, that we stay engaged in the activities of the young people who have said yes and taken the oath to serve for 2 years. So those are some changes reflected both on the application and going forward. Are there any questions or thoughts? Excuse me, Patriot has a comment. Yes. Okay. Any comments or suggestions? Okay, then we will move on to, I will just give the miscellaneous piece about awards that we have earned. Between 2008 and 19, we had earned 46 awards, national, international awards from these various organizations. And in 2020, we earned another 6. So we have earned 52 awards. I'm not sure if that's the number I have in my records. Tina and I are still reconciling. That's still an awful lot of recognition. And I continue to submit our program annual training binders each year to 4 different highly recognized professional organizations that evaluate the work that we do. And so, in fact, I will be getting ready for 2 more of those in the next couple of weeks. And so that just brings us up to where we are in terms of third-party objective recognition of the work that the legislative staff and the board and everybody contributes to the magnificence and excellence of this program that is being recognized on a regular basis internationally as typically we earn platinum awards. Sometimes we earn gold, but overwhelmingly we earn platinum recognition for the work that you do, that the staff does consistently through your commitment to the Nevada Youth Legislature. So I thank everybody for that. So are there any board comments as we get to the conclusion of this meeting? Any comments? Or I would give us talk about a date for the next meeting, but the next meeting would involve a new board, or it could be us, but it will be the board that will be appointed by this next legislature. So that would be determined by the board that will step into our shoes going forward for the next 2-year term. Mr. Okunulim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For my comment, I want to echo the thank you that you have in your report. Thanks to LCB and all the amazing folks who continue to dedicate themselves and their time and their passion to supporting this program. As an alumnus, it's still amazing to see how much the program continues to grow. And like you've shared many times, Madam Chair, it seems like every year we might think, wow, the program can't get any better, and yet it does. When I was on the Youth Legislature, I thought it was already amazing, and now I sometimes ask myself, oh, it would be really cool to experience that again. So I appreciate the opportunity to continue to remain involved now as an alumnus and as a mentor and assistant with some of the trainings. So again, I echo all the thank yous that you shared, Madam Chair, and I'm really excited to follow the work that the youth legislators will be doing during the session.
Thank you, Mr. Okunulim. Anybody else? And again, we're doing kudos. Asher, thank you for being with us consistently, and Tina and BPS and everybody else who gets to be seen on camera and not seen on camera for the phenomenal, consistent, high-level contributions that you make to the program. Again, during a pandemic, all of you, the behind the scenes and in front of the camera, made it possible, and in such a way at a very, very high level. Again, I was just dumbfounded that we've had 100% participation. And even yesterday, we only had, I believe, we had 2 who missed the entire meeting they had asked for excused absences, and they were very legitimate reasons they couldn't be there. Just an extraordinary level of engagement. And I'm not talking about they just show up and put a screenshot up. They stay on camera fully engaged. And so think about what they are learning about how to maximize the virtual experience. I mean, we can't even know the value of this program in that context that they are learning. We gave them a how to maximize a virtual meeting, your presence at, and dressing the part and doing the setting and notice my Nevada blanket here and Nevada picture above me and the legislature, but maximizing your opportunity to be at that meeting because people are looking at you. And when you're on camera, it's one-on-one, and you know how to do that. And you heard it today, our youth legislators, that's an example of just how much they are soaring through the challenges of a pandemic, that they are absolutely optimizing the virtual experience in terms of advocacy and learning and curiosity and showing up. And so thank you all, to everybody who's contributed to the excellence of this program that has gone, it's just sky high in a time when, to an observer, this would be a time when, to a stereotypical response to a pandemic, where everything would tumble and crash and burn. And we've had the highest level of engagement in the history of our program. And that's because every one of you, and those that aren't even involved in this particular meeting, have made exceptional contributions, extraordinary commitment to the success and the continuity and the seamless superiority. Well, maybe that sounds a little bit haughty, but the just seamless rollout of a program that changes not just the lives of the youth, but that impacts the lives of the entire state in ways that we're already have been experiencing through the years. So is there any public comment at this time?
Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time. Would you like to take a 2-minute break to allow people watching online to have time to call in?
If that is the standard practice, certainly we can do that, and then we can come back and you can report as to whether or not we have public commenters or not. So we'll take a 2-minute recess, board, and we'll come back and determine whether anyone online would like to make comment.
Okay. Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Then I appreciate again everybody showing up. Thank you for staying on beyond what might have been expected, the timeline for the meeting. I appreciate everybody's engagement. Every minute of it was, well, frozen screen there. Every minute of it was an essential component. There being no other business before what we call the NYL board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.